that's not the only thing that we've been hearing about from AEW. It was reported by Dave Meltzer and a couple of other outlets that allegedly the AEW Disciplinary Committee has been handing out fines for comments made by certain wrestlers on social media. Allegedly, Britt Baker is one of the people who has been fined. Matt Hardy is another one of the people who have been fined. And on top of that, it seems as if the former head of AEW post-production, Kevin Sullivan has been released from AEW. And I want to know from your perspective, are we seeing just a shift in direction in AEW, or do you think it's the beginning of the end?
I don't want to say the beginning of the end because in any business that does start up, especially on like such a large platform like Tony Khan has, you're gonna have to unfortunately deal with the wave. Like you're gonna have peaks and you're gonna have dips. This is their major dip. And it's kind of like where you either put up or shut up. 'Cause obviously, your formula's not working. You got your talents running over you. You got people quitting. The ratings might be dropping. I feel like he has had a major reality check since, and he's just trying to clean things up. I mean, I feel like we discussed it so many times on this channel, but this is what happens when you don't have rules, and you don't have boundaries. Now he's playing catch up with that, and he's understanding that, all right, certain people got to go, and certain people need to learn to shut the fuck up. So if you're not going to listen to little old me, I'm paying, your checks to you. All right, well, now I'm going to fine you. And that's going to straighten you out real quick, because just because this is AEW and you're still getting a nice check, and I let you know that, hey, I'm going to give you better treatment than in WWE, well, that doesn't mean you're going to disrespect me, disrespect my company. Anything you have to say. And from what my understanding, Britt Baker got fined for something she said on Twitter, and Matt Hardy went, I think, on like a podcast or an interview. Regardless, you're representing the company. If you really have a complaint, you should be able to come to your boss about it, or whoever is in the chain of command to leave that over to Tony Khan. So it sounds like it sucks, but I don't think it sucks. I feel like within due time, you're going to like see a lot more structure, and we're going to hear less bullshit about what's going on backstage, because it's very indie over there.
Yeah.
And I feel like he had to have learned the hard way that, all right, I don't really like WWE. I want to be the more likable boss, the more likable company, but being nice doesn't get you respected and doesn't get you anywhere, sir. So you're going to have to do some things you don't like, and he's kind of pulling some things out of the Vince McMahon book, and finding people was one of them. People got a lot of fines. Even the top of the top got fined for whatever, just because you're not about to make my company look bad because you have feelings or you just want to do something. Like business is business at the end of the day. So I'm not mad at it. As far as you said, Kevin Sullivan or whatever
Kevin Sullivan got released from AEW, who is this is allegedly. And he was the head of post-production. So a lot of trailers, a lot of the content that we saw AEW produce, as far as, it probably went through him. So.
Oh, okay. Well, again, I didn't even know who this Kevin Sullivan person was. I'm like, is this a wrestler? I actually had to look it up. I was like, who is this man? I mean, I feel like another complaint that AEW gets is that it also appears to production-wise look very indie. So it doesn't shock me that as of right now, they want to go in a different direction with that as well. I'm not complaining too much about how it looked, but it's just that if you're like a $1 billion company, or at least you're ran by this $1 billion owner, I feel like the production should be stepped up. I think you just mentioned stuff about like the music cues. There's times where I think like they're doing like production stuff with like interviews, and I feel like I can barely hear the audio. I just feel like, is he responsible for anything visual wise, like with like lighting and stuff like that, or is that just a whole different department?
That's a different. When we talk about post production, we're talking about packages, we're talking about trailers, we're talking about a lot of the visual element that we see on screen. It could be build-up packages. It could be interviews. All that usually runs through some type of post-production head or post-production manager. I'm only speaking from experience. But
Oh. Yeah, I mean, it's not bad, but I mean, it still needs more developing. So, I mean, if they got somebody else, I'm interested. I'm interested in seeing if they have anything more polished. It's unfortunate that the dude lost his job, but I mean, oh well, that's kind of business. What do you think about it?
So I'll start with the Kevin Sullivan one. I think that one of the things that we had kind of heard rumblings of is that AEW wanted to go in a different direction as far as like its match style. They wanted to do stuff that was more New Japan stylistically. And I feel like stuff like that drives your production decisions as far as how you want to shoot matches, how you want to highlight certain things. And we even see that influence on the Continental Classic, which is very, very similar to the G1, a New Japan tournament. So I'm not surprised. Obviously, it's never good to hear about somebody losing their job. Kevin Sullivan is someone who is knee deep in the game, someone who is in WWE and has created a lot of memorable packages. And so my heart goes out to him. I'm very, very intrigued. However, I do think that this is kind of a sign of the times more than anything, that AEW is kind of shifting directions and that AEW is kind of like in a reset mode because certain things just got to happen. I feel like one of the biggest things that AEW kind of prided itself on behind the scenes was, it just feels this, or it feels that, or it feels fresh. And you can't build a company on vibes. You got to build a company on principles. You got to build a company on values. And so when you have a company or an entity in which you're more rooted in the feeling of than the reality of, you start to experience a lot of instability. And I think that that's what we started to see a lot because of the lack of structure, but because of the lack of protocol. And I feel like that's the reason why we have an AEW Discipline Committee now. And I think that it's great for the company. I think that it's great for the industry. Like you said, when you got people like Britt Baker and a Matt Hardy, I get it, right? Matt Hardy more than Britt, but like you're successful, you have grievances, you want to air it out. But baby, like this is a new time in AEW. And on top of that, you're a representative of the company. Like one of the things that I will always commend Tony Khan for is that he has been very ethical in his pay scale, right? Like the women at the top make just as much as the men at the top, or at least that was something that he kind of prided itself on when AEW was introduced. So if I'm paying you all this money, understand, like, you're a representative of the company, number one. And also, like, it's a part of the game. You're not going to be on top forever. The people that were world champions 2 to 3 years ago are not world champions now. The people that were getting chunks of segments back then are not getting chunks of segments now, right? I feel like the wheel keeps on turning. We have to continue to reinvent ourselves. We have to continue to develop new stars. And that may mean that some TV time is going to this person instead of you. I love Britt Baker. She's produced some great moments. But Toni Storm is doing her life's work right now as the AEW World Women's Champion. And sometimes, sis, that means you got to take the back seat. The camera ain't going to be on you. You're not going to get promo time. And guess what? That doesn't mean that you're not talented. That doesn't mean that they don't have plans to utilize you. But sis, it's not your turn. When it was your turn, you made the most of it. Congratulations. But this ain't about you right now, baby girl. And sometimes you just gotta, say, you know what? Do I want to be on TV? Absolutely. Do I want the promo time? Absolutely. But I got to think about what's best for my division. I got to think about what's best for the company. And right now, Toni Storm being the face of the women's division isn't exactly the worst decision in the world. All right? Like, come on, we got to pull it together. Like, and we'll talk about the Hardys a little bit later because I think my feelings are a little bit different. But overall, like, not all talent is going to be featured all the time. I feel like there's certain people that should be highlighted still, but like at the same time, you only have 2-3 hours of television per week. I think 5, based on if you talk about Dynamite, Collision, and Rampage. Simultaneously, it's like there's only but so much time, and if we want to create a wrestling-centric product, that means that we're gonna have to have long matches. We're gonna have to have things that may dip into time that you would have normally had. So that's my little opinion on that. But I just think that AEW is in the midst of a well-needed reset that's going to deal with the structure of the company as well as just a difference in presentation of the on-screen product. I think it's needed and I think it's great. And that shout out to Tony Khan and Brian Danielson for doing their thing. But we want to know how you feel. Do you think that this is the beginning of the decline of AEW, or do you think this is just a much-needed shift? You know how we think. Let us know what you think. But we're moving on